Welcome to The Explainer. I am so incredibly excited to take you on this journey today. We're stepping right into what is honestly the absolute mystery of human consciousness. We are going to explore how we actually experience reality, how we create meaning, and how one single profound moment at a water pump completely rewrote our entire understanding of the human mind. So, get comfortable because we're going deep into the very essence of what makes us who we are. I want to pose this provocative question right out of the gate to hook you into our philosophical focus for today. Really think about it for a second. I mean, a chimpanzee can absolutely learn to pull a lever to get a banana, right? A dog can easily learn to salivate when it hears a buzzer. They communicate, they react, they survive. But what is that fundamental leap? What exactly separates those basic survival instincts from a human being writing a poem, or feeling existential dread, or building an entire civilization? Section 1. The Human Language Mystery. Searching for the Spark of Consciousness. For literally centuries, philosophers and scientists have been searching for the precise mechanism that pulled us out of the purely biological realm and into the daylight of consciousness. So let's dive into this by pitting a classic, ancient definition against a really revolutionary 20th century idea. For over 2 millennia, we basically relied on Aristotle. He defined man as the animal rationale, the rational animal. He believed we were separated from animals purely by our logical reasoning and our intellect. Pretty straightforward. But the German philosopher Ernst Cassirer challenged this. He argued that defining us just by cold rationality leaves out huge parts of the human experience, like art, myth, and religion. Instead, Cassirer proposed that we are the animal Symbolicum. What makes us unique isn't just logic. It's our undeniable, inherent drive to create cultural and symbolic worlds. Section 2. Beyond Stimulus and Response, the Dyadic Model. To truly understand how human language changed absolutely everything, we really have to look at how scientists historically viewed behavior. For a long time, everything was just viewed through a very simple biological lens. Let's contrast a closed biological loop with an open universe of shared meaning. Think about the dyadic model for a second. It's a simple 2-part causal chain. A buzzer sounds, a dog salivates. Boom. Cause and effect. But, as the philosopher Walker Percy pointed out, human language completely shatters this. Consider the triadic model. A father points to a toy, looks at his son, and says, "balloon." The child looks at the balloon and then back at the father. You see, this isn't just a reflex. It's a triadic model. It's a shared realization between 2 distinct minds about a third objective thing. The crucial difference here really lies in the limitations of animal signals. Animal communication is strictly a direct stimulus and response. It's tied entirely to immediate subjective states. So, like a bird giving a warning cry just because it feels fear right in that specific immediate moment. The signal functions strictly as a physical operator, and it's completely confined to a closed functional circle. They can't discuss a predator that isn't currently there, and they totally lack the capacity for reflective distance or true abstraction. Now, we can observe this stark difference in human terms by looking at the early life of Helen Keller. Because she tragically lost her sight and hearing at just 19 months old, her early world was essentially trapped in a realm of mere signals. Early on, as the source materials note, words and non-linguistic objects were completely indistinguishable in her mind. Sure, she could use a physical sign to demand water, but it was really just a reflex to satisfy a biological thirst. She couldn't actually distinguish between the container itself and the liquid inside it. And this total lack of symbolic distance had some really profound behavioral consequences. There's a deeply visceral anecdote from Helen's autobiography that perfectly illustrates this. Just before her great linguistic breakthrough, she was given a new doll. In a fit of immense frustration, she threw the doll on the floor, literally shattering it into pieces. And here is the vital part, the absolute key to this story. She felt absolutely no remorse. Trapped in a dyadic world of pure stimulus and response, she completely lacked the capacity for ethical self-reflection. Section 3. The Animal Symbolicum. Cassirer's third link. So, how do we eventually cross over from that pure animal instinct to actual self-reflection? Well, we turn to Ernst Cassirer. He defined the animal Symbolicum as creatures who transcend biological instincts by inserting an artificial medium between perception and action. The absolute vital takeaway here is that symbols are not just passive labels we slap onto things in the world, they're active tools. We don't just blindly react to the physical world, we interpose the symbolic system that actually delays our reactions and allows us to construct a totally new reality. It's a real game changer. And by inserting that artificial medium, we generate these incredible, entirely autonomous cultural domains. Language, myth, art, religion, science. Think about it. None of these are strictly biologically necessary for basic survival, but they are absolutely essential to human existence. They prove that we don't just react to reality, we actively interpret it, and we weave it into this beautifully tangled web of shared meaning. Section 4. The water pump breakthrough. Crossing the gap. This brings us to the emotional climax of our story, a famous summer day in Alabama in 1887. Helen is out at the water pump with her teacher, Anne Sullivan. As cold water gushed over one of her hands, Anne spelled W-A-T-E-R into the other. And suddenly, the spark caught. This was the magical moment. The physical sensation of water transformed into a stable, objective concept in her mind. Helen suddenly realized the spelling wasn't just a behavioral trigger to get a drink, it was the actual name of the substance. As she famously wrote, everything had a name, and each name gave birth to a new thought. And look at the immediate cognitive consequence of this huge semiotic reorganization. Here is the emotional bookend to our earlier story. After discovering symbols at the well house, Helen returns to the cottage. She feels her way to the hearth, picks up the broken doll pieces she had smashed earlier in a rage, and her eyes fill with tears. For the very first time in her entire life, she feels genuine repentance and sorrow. Acquiring symbolic language actually provided the structural framework and the reflective distance necessary for ethical self-evaluation. Section 5. Percy's delta factor, the geometry of meaning. To truly unpack the mechanics of what exactly happened at that water pump, the philosopher Walker Percy formulated a brilliant new linguistic philosophy. He called this massive cognitive leap the delta factor. He used the Greek letter delta, which is a triangle, to signify this irreducible triadic event where man broke through into the daylight of language. It visually grounds the whole idea of this jump in evolutionary consciousness. It's basically the geometry of meaning itself. Let's break down the mechanics of this triadic structure. Unlike that old two-part animal model we talked about earlier, the delta factor requires 3 distinct points. First, the namer, that's you, the conscious subject. Second, the sign, the symbol or the word being used. And third, the referent, the actual objective reality out there in the world. Meaning isn't just caused by a physical reaction anymore, it is mediated by the self. This completely, utterly shatters the dyadic model of behaviorism. And here is Percy's truly mind-bending revelation about the consequences of this discovery. He points out 3 mystifying negatives in the delta phenomenon. The word is not the physical sound in the air. The thing is not the physical object out there. And the namer is not just a biological organism. The connection between them isn't physical at all. It's an imputed relationship. It's a semantic identity that we actively construct in our own minds. Section 6. Our symbolic universe, the cost of consciousness. Once you enter the daylight of language, you can never, ever go back to being just an organism in an environment. Look at the hidden architecture of what Helen Keller achieved. By learning that there is a naming relation, she partitioned her mental networks into distinct categories, words, objects, and the relationships between them. She imposed a semantic structure onto a world she had previously only understood syntactically. I mean, she literally built an entire symbolic universe inside her mind. But as you might guess, living in a symbolic universe is a massive double-edged sword. Biological reality is finite, it's mortal, and it's driven entirely by immediate survival needs. But symbolic reality, that is transcendent. It grants us endless cultural elaboration and total ethical freedom. Entering this universe frees us from environmental determinism, meaning we aren't just reacting to our surroundings anymore. But in exchange, it hands us the incredibly heavy burden of interpretive responsibility. We literally have to figure out what everything means. And this connects the delta factor directly back to our modern condition today. Walker Percy famously noted that breaking into the daylight of language gave us happiness, yes, but also profound sadness. It gave us the beautiful capacity for being with others, but also the deep existential ache of being alone. It's the reason why a human being can feel so incredibly sad, bored, and alienated in the 20th or 21st century, even when all their basic biological needs are perfectly met. We are basically symbol mongers, constantly, restlessly searching for meaning. Which leads me to conclude our explainer today with this deeply provocative question. If language is the very tool that freed us from biological instinct, why do we so often feel like total strangers in our own symbolic universe? It is a fascinating testament to the immense power and the profound cost of being an animal symbolicum. I want you to deeply ponder the weight of your own words today, and just remember that every single time you name something, you are actively constructing your reality. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey.